Good morning. Welcome to October's Coffee with a Consultant. I am Melanie Lambert. I'm Managing Director of Just Right Grants, and we're a virtual grant writing company. So I spend my days talking, thinking about grant writing. So I'm excited for you to join me this morning, and we can talk about 5 reasons that you need a grant calendar. But first and foremost, the most important thing about Coffee with a Consultant is what are you drinking this morning? So this morning I have got my hot, because it's a little chilly here where I am, my hot pumpkin spice in my Halloween themed mug because this is my favorite time of year and I can't get enough of combining coffee and Halloween. So here I am with my pumpkin spice. What are you drinking this morning? Pick your, what are you using as your morning pick me up today, your caffeine boost? Doesn't have to be coffee. Of course, it can be tea. We have lots of folks that chime in on the chat and share what kind of tea they're drinking. And I love to learn about new things that I can try. So please use the chat feature. Tell me where you're joining from this morning and what you are indulging in as your caffeine boost. So let's dive in as everybody's doing that and coming on board and talk about grant calendars a little bit. First and foremost, what is a grant calendar? So a grant calendar is a shareable document, shareable calendar that allows you to keep track of deadlines and tasks for the grant writing process that you need to stay on top of in order to successfully submit those requests. So while your first one may only be 12 months, they're going to naturally start progressing past that 1 year point as you continue to build them. It's not a static document. It's something that's always changing. You might feel really confident about one that you put together at the beginning of the year and then get a few months in and notice, this looks a lot different than it did in September or October when I put it together last year. And that's natural. That's what happens in grant writing. Even after you do the bulk of setting it up, you've got to give yourself that flexibility and know going into it that that's going to be part of the process, particularly as deadlines change, funding priorities change, things from the grant funder themselves will change. So kind of the question that I get a lot is, do you use a paper version or a digital version? Well, that's really up to you. So whatever works best for you. I tend to kind of do a hybrid version. I've got an excellent online version or digital version that I use that I can share with other grant writers and I can share with the nonprofits that I work with. But then I also sometimes print that out and I'll write it into my paper planner that I use for all of my tasks and meetings, just because I know myself really well. And I tend to remember things better when I physically write them down. That's just my learning style. So it can also depend on the type of team that you work with. If you're a one man or one woman grant writing force, then whatever works for you is what's most important. But if you're part of a team with multiple people, combining forces to make the grant strategy work, you may need to have a digital version that you can share. So now that we know the basics, let's talk about why you need one. The biggest reason that you need a grant calendar, actually, let me backtrack. Let's talk about why people don't have grant calendars. It can be really easy as a busy grant writer or busy fundraising professional to sort of wing it, excuse me, to be tempted to wing it. And that can lead to a lot of missed deadlines. It can lead to missing requirements. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But it can be really tempting to just sort of be reactive instead of proactive in grant writing because there's so much going on, and particularly if you wear a lot of hats. But in my time of grant writing and fundraising, I have never seen it be a disadvantage to invest that time. It has always been an advantage and a positive for my work, my sanity, and the overall fundraising goal. So let's talk about why you need to invest that time. First and foremost is organization. If you're new to grant writing, you might just think that all it is keeping track of those deadlines. And while those are super important, obviously, to keep track of, there's so much more that goes into grant writing than just making sure you submit by the deadline. So having an effective grant calendar can help you track things like when you're going to connect with that grant administrator, when you're going to send the letter of inquiry or the letter of interest, when you're going to pull together your budgets internally and make sure that that's the most up-to-date information. Who's going to draft the application, who reviews it, who approves it, who's going to actually be the one that submits it. Staying organized also allows you to ensure that you follow all of the guidelines and the requirements of each particular funder. So every grant application is different. And some applications may require more time and more collateral in the application. So it's important that you build that into your calendar so that you make sure that you can meet each one of those unique requirements. One thing that happened to me that's a shining example of this is when I was new to fundraising and new to grant writing, I worked at an organization where the board chair would take 2 weeks off at the end of the year and go on vacation. And I didn't know about that ahead of time. So I was working on an application that required a live signature from that board chair, and he was gone. And the deadline was December 31st. So unfortunately, because I could not get that cover letter in front of him while he was relaxing on the beach, we missed that grant deadline. So it's things like that that you need to build into your calendar and anticipate external things that could impact your ability to meet that deadline. And the second thing that's important about having a grant calendar, why you need to have a grant calendar, is timing your requests. Planning for and accounting for the timing of your requests is an important part of making sure that grant writing can help sustain your organization as well as be part of your overall fundraising strategy. So because, again, every grant is different, every deadline can be different, planning out your grant calendar over the course of the year and knowing when you might hear back from those opportunities, and ideally when you're going to get a check, can help you budget more effectively for your nonprofit. And this timing can vary wildly too. So some grant makers are very candid about their timing. They'll tell you when you can expect to hear back from them. They're going to tell you when you may expect to get a check, and even before you submit that request in the first place. So others may be a bit more ambiguous. Especially if they're a smaller foundation, they need more time, or they just may not be as consistent. I worked with a client a few months ago who called me and said, "Melanie, did we work on this grant together?" And we've been working together for about 6 to 8 months at the time. And I said, "No, we didn't work on that one." And she went back and looked because she got a check in the mail out of nowhere, surprised by a check, which is a good problem to have if you're in fundraising, but got this check and didn't even remember submitting the application. So that's kind of an extreme situation, and you can't really plan for that when they don't tell you. But when you can plan for it, it's really helpful based on purchases and expenses that you're going to have throughout your year. The third reason that you really want to have a grant calendar is that you can track your success year to year. Once you commit that time and the effort to building that grant calendar that works for you, the best part is it can work year after year for you. Find a template that's easy to copy over the requests that you've made that you plan to resubmit to. Also include notes on the ones that you're not going to submit to again. Maybe they've declined your application. It's just never going to be a good fit. We've got a really great grant calendar template in our online store that you can make edits to. You can copy tabs over from year to year and then delete the ones that you're not going to resubmit to, adjust your grant awards, and it's easily shareable within your team. You can find it at our online store, which is justwritegrants.com/online store, or you can check out that QR code up there in the corner. And to thank you for joining me today, you can use the promo code COFFEE, all caps, COFFEE, and receive 50% off that grant calendar. If you need something to kind of help you get started, don't spend a bunch of time searching the internet. There's really not a whole lot of options out there as far as downloadable templates. So just take advantage of ours, and hopefully that'll be helpful for you. If you've got any feedback on how we can make it even more helpful once you get into it, please email me and let me know. We're always looking for that kind of boots on the ground responses and insights. Next, the fourth reason that you want to have a grant calendar is reporting. If you've worked in fundraising for 5 minutes, you know that reporting is a critical component of our success and our process. You're probably reporting to lots of different stakeholders too. Your board is going to want to know where you are in the grant writing process for each application you plan to submit, how much you've been awarded, and what's pending. So you can easily track that with the right grant calendar. Pull that information out for your board meetings. Also, more than likely, if you receive an award, you're going to have to provide a grant report for that. So building that timing of when that's due into your grant calendar keeps it all in the same place. You can link to things if you're using an online version, data reports that you need to include. It just helps keep everything comprehensive and cohesive in the same place. And you don't risk missing a requirement or missing a deadline and potentially jeopardizing your relationship with that funder. So the fifth reason that you need a grant calendar, I can't prove this universally across the board for fundraising or grant writing, but in my experience, when I'm tracking my grants and I'm being diligent about keeping that information in one place, and I'm doing it as well and as organized as humanly possible, I have a higher success rate with my grant applications. It's just, for me, that's a fact. By being strategic about how I use my time and truly working hard to determine which applications have the highest likelihood of success for my organization, I see an increase in grant awards. And if you think about it, it may make sense universally. I'm not just peppering the landscape with my applications, right? I'm being very thoughtful about where I'm submitting to. So therefore, I'm submitting less applications, probably. The ones I'm submitting to have been properly cultivated because I'm investing the time into that. They've been researched and assessed, and we've invested the necessary time to craft the highest quality application that we can. We're not rushed. We're not submitting 5 minutes before the deadline or right before the portal closes, which is so nerve-wracking. We're not missing critical information because we didn't have time. We've got that board chair's signature on that cover letter, and we're putting our best foot forward because we planned ahead. So there are 5 good reasons that you need to have a grant calendar as we head into the end of the calendar year now and start thinking about 2024, which is crazy. But they're truly a valuable tool and resource in grant writing that can help you feel less scattered, particularly if you're managing more than just grant writing, and stay more on top of your process and your strategy in this very important fundraising revenue stream. If you still need a little bit of help with your grant calendar or other elements of grant writing, Just Write Grants has recently launched our grant writing boot camp. And I'm going to put the QR code up there for you now. We're still offering that at our exclusive introductory rate. One of our sessions is all about grant calendars and includes some really great templates. It actually includes that calendar that is available in the online store. So that would be part of the package with the grant writing bootcamp. Lots of downloads and templates and resources so that you can get started right away. Let me know if you have any questions about the bootcamp. And that wraps up this month's Coffee with a Consultant. I hope it's been helpful for you. Let me know in the comments if there are any questions about grant calendars. I'm happy to answer, or if there's any topics that we can go over and chat about in future Coffee with a Consultant events. Make sure that you've signed up for our e-newsletter on our website, justwritegrants.com, so that you can get information about future Coffee with a Consultant events, as well as social media. We post on social media about them regularly. So thank you for joining me today. I look forward to seeing you in next month's Coffee with a Consultant. Have a great day.